Hey everybody, this is Urban Barati. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Saturday, August 15th. I don't know where the time went. But thank you so much for being here. As you know, I do a lot of entertainment industry Q&As on Zoom and live. Every now and then we'll do something for charity. I've known Jennelle Gordon for about 2 years now, almost 2 years, like a year and a half. I met her at a conference, and we've been friends since. And I've done a few benefits for her through my events series. We like to give back. I think everybody likes to give back. So that's why we do this. We do these series. Today we have Beyond Freedom, which is a nonprofit based in OC, and these lovely ladies can tell you more about it. They can speak more about it because I have a short bio on it, but they speak from the heart. They speak with passion. But I do have four lovely ladies with us today. We have Jennelle Gordon, Kayla Bettles, Kayla Bright. So we have two Kaylas, and Tina Sani. A little bit about each lady. I've known, like I said, I've known Jennelle for a long time. So I had to condense her bio today, but her bio is like stretches like this much, and I can only give you this much right now. But Jennelle Gordon is the founder of Beyond Freedom. Jennelle is an inspiration for women as a leader, speaker, and educator. She studied Tantra and yoga extensively with masters in Thailand after leaving her traumatic past behind for a brighter future. Having been the product of rape and then the system, her fate would have been sealed by statistics to either death or life of addiction. But rather than sit in the passenger seat of her own life and live in compliance with societal programming, she took the wheel and created her own destiny. Please give it up for Jennelle Gordon. That was a mouthful, but please give it up for Jennelle Gordon. A silent round of applause.
Yes. Awesome. It's such a pleasure to be here, Arman. I just adore you. You have been such a support to me in this organization on times that I've just didn't get support from anyone. You were the shining light to keep me going. And I just can't say enough amazing things about you and your partners that have hosted events for us in LA. I always say I'm the black sheep, doing this work in, I mean, I don't even consider it work, but having this organization in Orange County, where it's very conservative and very faith-based, and not that I'm opposed to any of those things, but I accept anyone into our nonprofit, and you don't have to be involved in some kind of religious, program to be in for us to welcome you with open arms. So the work that I do has not been supported here in the OC, but LA has always welcomed us with open arms. And so I'm obsessed with the artists and entertainers and musicians and writers and actors that have just poured their love and support to Beyond Freedom. So thank you so much for hosting the events and being a support and sharing your network with us when no one else was doing it.
Not a problem. Jennelle, cyber hug. Up next, we have Kayla Bettles. Kayla is a survivor of domestic violence for 10 years and of sex trafficking for 6 years. Despite suffering from chronic illness, severe PTSD, and fighting addiction, she's fought for her healing so that she can help so she can help other victims and survivors. She has dedicated her life to trying to spread light and tell her story of hope and to join the fight in ending sex trafficking. She loves to do mixed media art and is writing a book. She also helps in gathering supplies and going on street outreach. Kayla is most proud that she is a mother and is free to dream, live, choose, and love. Please give it up for Kayla Bettles.
Thank you.
So I just most recently met Jennelle at the perfect time. I was needing another survivor to look at me and know what I was talking about. You can go for like 6 months and then you're like, okay, I need someone that knows what I'm talking about. And so Jennelle came into my life at the perfect time, and she supported me in the Don't Be Pimped. I gave her a tank, and it was just really cool. It was a cool experience. And yeah, I'm in right now just trying to get my 501c3 off the ground and everything like that. And I'm also pregnant, so a lot of life changes. So I'm just excited to be here. Like I said, anything that will offer light to other people, I want to give that, because I feel like the mercy that I received from the universe that saved my life, I owe that to other survivors to show them, what I did to survive. So that's why I'm here, and I will always continue. If Jennelle asks me tomorrow, hey, we got another one, I would do it tomorrow because I think this
We actually do
work
have one
is
tomorrow if you can. I'm kidding. No.
Oh, I would say I would do it. I would do it because it's so important, you know? It's just such an underserved population, and like we deserve to be heard. And so any platform where we deserve to be heard, like we just go through our lives and people aren't listening to us, and we are using our voice. So to have a platform where people are here, like from all over the world, that want to hear our voice is like amazing to me. Like it gives me those like goosebumps, those god bumps, because it's something. It's we get to be heard now. We went through that, and now it's time for us to be heard. And so this is just a blessing that Jennelle asked me to do this. So I'm just really grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for all of you who are interested in hearing what we have to say, and just for taking the time to be here and talk about these hard things, you know. So thank you so much.
Kayla, it's a blessing to know you, to meet you. Thank you so much for being here. We have the other Kayla, Kayla Bright. Kayla Bright overcame the odds of abuse and trafficking in her life. She now works to combine research and life experience to show others healing from trauma is possible. Kayla believes that creating space for authentic conversations about taboo topics is needed, especially in the faith-based community. She's in the process of launching her podcast, Prodigal Becoming. I love the name, which will provide listeners with conversations and answers to the taboo topics on how to live a life full of joy and success while arising from mess ups that inevitably happen in life. You can follow Kayla and take part in the journey on Instagram at Prodigal Becoming. That is PRODIGAL Becoming. Welcome, Kayla.
Hi, Armand. Thank you so much for having us. This is such an honor to be here and like speak with you, and meeting you for the first time too. Jennelle, also thank you so much for asking me to be on this. Me and Jennelle connected a few months ago, and Jennelle came into my life kind of same thing as the other Kayla said, at probably just the perfect time. I was looking to kind of connect with some other survivors. I don't know too many that have overcome the odds and then now are working on sharing this and spreading awareness about it. And what I love about Jennelle is I come from a faith background, and that is where I found my healing. But I also err on the side of it doesn't have to be, I just want anyone to find healing. And I love that Jennelle is accepting of any type, because there are some people that, you know, when it comes to faith or church, there's all these barriers and walls that go up because of people. So I love that Jennelle is just open about any of it and how she has accepted my story into her Beyond Freedom and Prodigal Becoming, going into that as well. I'm very excited to like kind of step into this calling that I have, and Prodigal Becoming is a huge part of that, of just sharing kind of what Kayla was saying as well, sharing stories of other survivors and how you can find healing from any form of trauma. And as I said, I throw into research in it. I'm very big on how trauma affects the brain and how it affects people, and then goes into healing as well. So I'm excited to share all that with you guys.
Kayla, thanks so much for being here. Kayla Bright, everybody. Your name fits your personality. I love it.
It's so beautiful. I just want to jump in real quick, Armand, because, you know, I don't know if people, maybe everyone doesn't know what Tantra is, but in my nonprofit is Beyond Freedom, and my for-profit work, I work as a relationship and sex coach. So I deal with educating the general public to have a healthier view around sex and sexuality, so that we don't have perversions like human trafficking. And so my for-profit, I lead retreats and workshops and have online courses and do one-on-one coaching and group coaching literally all over the world. In fact, at the end of September, I have a Tantra retreat in Playa del Carmen. So, but I say all that to say it's very challenging for me to do both of those things, because I get a lot of flack from the faith-based community that feel that I shouldn't be executive director of a nonprofit and work with these wonderful women, and then also be educating people about healthy sexuality. They feel like it's not okay. And so Kayla, what you're doing is even more taboo in a sense, because I'm not claiming to be faith-based. I'm saying I'm all about love, and I don't care who you are, you're welcome and Beyond Freedom. But you are in the faith-based community, and you are trying to, educate people about sex. And so it's definitely something that's extremely taboo. I've gotten kicked off of every platform known to man for just trying to educate people in different ways. And so it's always a challenge. So I just commend you for taking that on, and just know you have a long road ahead of you. But obviously I've gone through almost everything when it comes to this. So I'm always here to support you in that. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
If you are interested in even understanding what Tantra is, hop on to Jennelle and figure this out, because it is the coolest thing ever. I am in one of her boot camps right now, and I've gotten to do a few of them, and it is just so powerful, like moving your body and learning how, like, I'm all for learning about, like I said, Prodigal Becoming is about talking about taboo topics. Sex, in case people didn't realize, most people like to have. So it's something that people should be talking about. And there are multiple ways to connect with that inside of yourself, even if you're not having it or you are having sex. So thank you for having all of that, Jennelle.
Of course. It's definitely always colorful world. I've got a great YouTube channel. And maybe, Armand, we can drop some links in here at the end so people can check out our stuff. All right.
Actually, awesome. I've taken Jennelle's classes, and I have notebooks full of notes. I'm kidding. Maybe one day, Jennelle, I should check it out.
You should.
Yeah, for sure. Last but not least, we have Tina Sani. We originally had Willow Kennedy on here, but we have Tina stepping in last minute. Tina, tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh my God. No, my boyfriend's being ridiculous in the background. So hi, I am Tina Sani. I live in Minneapolis. Currently, I work for the only survivor-led nonprofit in the state of Minnesota, which is Breaking Free. And I also have a podcast that is called Naming Jane Doe. I have been a survivor leader for a little over 4 years now, and I'm a survivor of not only sex trafficking, but also childhood sexual abuse. So I just feel like I like to use my platform for building people up and letting people know that you don't have to be a victim to your story. You can overcome it, and you can be the person that you dream of becoming, even through all of the trauma that you've been through. So I'm really all about quantum physics and how the brain works, kind of like Kayla. So I'm kind of obsessed with those two things, and I use the spiritual aspect of quantum physics to teach people how to heal. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Tina, thank you so much for being here. Let's give a silent round of applause to these 4 lovely ladies. Starting off, I want to ask, actually this goes to all 4 of you, anyone can just jump in. I work in entertainment, so we've seen the Hollywood telling of how human trafficking is, and at least they're talking about it, but we know that it's not the most accurate depiction. And I'm actually from Virginia Beach, Virginia, where it's a very touristy town. So a lot of trafficking happens under our noses. I've seen a lot of statistics, and I'm like, oh, I never saw it. Like, how could you know, right? Sometimes it happens under your nose. So if each of you can share your stories, however comfortable you are, and in whatever part of it you want to share with the audience, if you're open to sharing, how you got trafficked. Jennelle, I know how you got out of it, but if you can just dive in there and talk about your experiences.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of us, and the thing I think that's really important to understand here tonight is that you're going to see a lot of similarities in some of our stories, and then you're going to see some that are like totally different. Like, wow, incredible. I did an event where I spoke in front of 30,000 people with the Strike Out Slavery platform, and there was right here in Los Angeles for the Los Angeles Angels. Deidre Poolhouse is a dear friend of mine. And there was all of us girls speaking as they were filming, and all of our stories were so different. It was like crazy. And, but I say all that to say is, like, if you listen, you can pick up the differences, but you can also see the similarities of like the vulnerable population or even vulnerable times. So myself, like Tina, I was actually, I was a product of rape. My biological mother was raped and had a very unpleasant childhood, was a product of the foster system, experienced physical and sexual abuse as as an infant, as 6 months old. And so very, obviously very, did we lose Erman? Oh, there he is. Okay. Obviously a very traumatic childhood. I was placed into an extremist fundamental Christian cult, and life didn't get any better. It actually got worse, and just had a really hard, what kids would say, young school age. I didn't go to school. I didn't get things that we all have rights to, right? Education, healthcare, being exposed to the real world. I grew up in a bubble. So it was very difficult when I left home at 18, because I was mentally like 12 years old because of how I grew up. Picture Jehovah's Witness, Little House on the Prairie, that type of upbringing. So when I got out into the real world, I was totally like naive to what was going on. And very quickly, I actually, over a course of 10 years being bought and sold, I had 4 pimps. I had 2 that were what we call a finesse pimp. In some parts of the country, I know they refer to it maybe Romeo pimp, which is more, yeah, right? It depends on what part of the world or country you're in. But a finesse pimp is someone there's no violence. It's more of a psychological bond and psychological hold. And so they might not actually ever hit you, but it's just more of a mind FUCK, if you will. So it's just like you feel like you're enchained, but you're really not. So I got picked up by my first trafficker, and when I was pretty young, and I don't talk so much about that, but for time's sake, I want to speak more on the others. I ended up going into the US military because I was lost. I had no family. Obviously, I had run away from my family that I grew up in to try to just heal and find normalcy in a life that was so foreign to me. And I got kicked out of the Army for a spine injury that left me unable to walk. And I was eventually able to use yoga and meditation to help rehabilitate me. But during that time, I actually got picked up by my second trafficker on a military base in Fort Hood, Texas. And he was a finesse pimp. And he just got me thinking about myself in a way that I'd never thought about myself, as being pretty, as being, someone to be like desired. And at the time I was actually working at a steakhouse. I could barely walk, but I was serving tables, because what else do you do when you've been kicked out of the Army a day before you'd receive benefits? You have no family, you have a 7th grade education, you're pretty much just screwed. It's like, what am I supposed to do? So I was waiting tables, and this guy picked me up, and he just took an interest in me. And I started dating him. I thought he was my boyfriend, and come to find out, he was, dating several other women. So he very used his little magic to get me to start stripping. And at the time I had tried to enroll in college, and was very challenging, obviously, not ever having to graduate. So I started stripping, and soon got caught up in what I couldn't get out of working around the clock and giving him all my money. Around about a year into that, I met a photographer from Vegas. And I know everyone stops at this point and is like, oh, wow, this is where the trafficker comes in. But actually, this photographer is still a dear friend of mine. And I told him what was happening to me. And I said, I want to get out. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out of this situation that I'm in. I'm just going to work. I had dropped out of school. I had failed all my classes, including a public speaking class, which is very interesting, because now I am speaking all over the world. I have 3 TED Talks booked. So I guess I showed them on that one. But at any rate, he said, well, you know what? If you move to Vegas, I can help you get out of this situation, and I can get you involved in a modeling agency, like a legitimate modeling agency. I was always interested in acting, have this kind of larger than life personality. So I moved to Vegas. I got away from that pimp. I started convention modeling. In Vegas, we have a lot of trade shows. So you kind of just stand around in front of boats. It's kind of, what you do. And I was taking acting classes, and I was actually working at Hooters, believe it or not. When I met my pimp, this is the one that
I was a Hooters girl too, Jennelle.
There you go. So I was working at the largest Hooters on the Strip. I think it's one of the largest in the country. And I met this very attractive, very finesse guy that comes in with about 15 other guys, and I waited on the table, and they all had Hummer dealerships on, Hummers on their shirts, like they worked for Hummer. And I overheard the talk as I'm waiting on them, because they're all there talking about creating a luxury car rental for tourists, right? So this guy, my ex-pimp, was talking to these Hummer employees about collabing on this event. So very legitimate. Like in my mind, you know, I'm thinking this guy is a business guy. He comes in with all the bling, with all the Louis. He looks the part. And I wasn't interested in him like sexually, but there was something about him that was just intriguing to me, you know? And so he gave me his number, and I didn't call him for a few days, but here's what I want to touch on really quickly. And then I'll wrap up, is that there was something that he had said to me and just how he interacted with me that made me feel that I was important. And you have to understand, growing up, you know, impoverished, I grew up in a third world country. My family was missionaries, and there was actually times when we didn't even have food. So growing up poor, growing up abused, physically and sexually, growing up unwanted, and growing up in a Caucasian family where I felt like there was something wrong with me because of how my skin looked, how my features were. I just always wanted to fit in. I always wanted to be loved, and I always wanted to feel significant. And these are part of what we call our basic human needs. And so I'm touching on this because this is what traffickers do. They really prey on the vulnerability of young women to meet their needs wherever they are, so that they can give them those needs, just like a drug dealer gives an addict his fix, right? And then once he has him hooked, he's his forever. So it's the same thing. So I called him and we started dating. Again, I think I'm dating this guy. And he presents to me this life I have never even imagined. You have to understand, as a child, I don't know if you guys remember the angel trees, like in the shopping malls, right? You adopt those kids. I was one of those kids on the tree. So this is how I grew up. And to see this life full of, you know, he pulls me up to his house. He lives not next door, but like, you know, a block down from Celine Dion's home in Lake Las Vegas. We were rolling in, you know, Hummers and Mercedes Benz and Range Rovers and Porsches and Lamborghinis. Every day he picks me up, it's a different car. You know, this is like mind blowing to me. And so right away I feel significant. Right away he makes me feel special. Right away I feel, you know, connected, and I feel certain that I'm going to have a different future than what my life has been. And so I got caught up super quick. He convinced me again that I should start stripping. Stripping is the way to go. And it moved into this subtlety of him helping me to really tell, like he got me my boobs. And I know people think this is strange, but he told me what to say to my client to get boobs. And so traffickers do these sort of things to kind of say, look, I'm doing all this for you. So it's like a trap. And so, you know, not too far into our relationship, I'd say maybe 6 months in, I'm working, you know, 12 to 15 hour shifts in the top strip clubs in the world in Las Vegas. I'm, you know, entertaining the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. I've entertained every athlete you could think of, every celebrity you could think of, both men and women, many politicians, every UFC fighter, every boxer, big names. I'm telling you, I've spent time with them all in the clubs and oftentimes after hours in the Wynn, the Bellagio, the Venetian, the MGM Grand, staying in $30,000 night suites, like living that life. But I was doing it for someone else, against my will, and really to save my life. So that is basically my story of how I got in. And I know, Armand, you've probably never heard all of that, but I just wanted to go into a little bit more in depth of understanding like the mentality of where I was and how the opportunity of these men to come in and prey on that vulnerability and meet those needs is really what happened.
It's funny. Me and Jennelle have this running gag. Every time I talk to her, she tells me stuff, and I'm like, Jennelle, every time I speak to you, I learn something new about you. Like, you can fit like 5 autobiographies of your life, you know? Like, how many TED Talks does she need? Like, you always have something new to say every time I speak to you. So thank you so much, Jennelle, for sharing that experience. Would either Kayla like to go next?
I don't mind going. I can go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
What?
Oh, I was gonna go, but go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. So, kind of like how Jennelle said earlier, my story is similar but different. I was also I'm a survivor of child and adult rape. When I was younger, from about the age of 6 to 12, and then re-victimized when I was in middle school and high school. And my childhood sexual assault was very dark. So that brought me into it introduced me to sexual activity from a very dark perspective at a very young age. So growing up, I always felt like I was different. I never fit in. I was bullied all through school that I can remember. So when I met my trafficker, as well as everyone else, he was a Romeo. And he was someone I should have trusted. And we had a relationship going for a few years. Everything was great. And when we went to college, I was paying for college out of pocket. I had a few grants, but mainly I was in school for full time and working full time, which is a lot. It's a lot of hours. I was working about 40 to 50 hours a week and going to school the same amount. So I was exhausted all the time. When it was presented to me, I was enjoying college. I was going out and stuff and having my fun. So when it was presented to me, I didn't see any red flags in it. It was kind of just presented to me as, hey, you're already having fun in college and sleeping around. Why don't you just make money from it? And in my mind, I was like, why wouldn't I make money from it? Why go sleep with a random person when I could know the person and make money from it? It was like a no-brainer to me. And it was just one of those things where it's like, just do it a few times. Just do it a little, like once or twice a month, so you can have your money and you don't need to worry about working 45 hours a week. You can focus on your studies. And I was like, okay, that doesn't sound bad. I can do that. However, the people that he introduced me to, like Jennelle said, were very high-end people. These were NFL players, the elite top 1% of people, private jets, all of that. So I was living this life of extreme luxury in college. You know, I would take my friends out to bars and swipe a credit card and not think twice about it. And for me, it was like this, I call it the price tag cycle. I would stamp a price tag on myself and feel awesome about myself, like, oh, I'm worth all this. And then afterwards, I would hit the low of like, is that really all I'm worth? And then I would hit my cycle down and I would raise my price and it would just continue. And eventually it took over my life. I was failing college. I could barely pass a class. I really wasn't even going to school. And it became so addictive. And it was also, I had such low self-esteem from everything that I had been through, and with who my trafficker was feeding these lies of, you know, this is your worth, this is what you're good for, you know, they love it, they love you, you do very well at this is what you're good at. So it continued to feed in myself that this is what I was made for and this is what I was good at, and I wasn't good at anything else. I was failing school. I couldn't hold a job, all this other stuff. So I got into the mindset of, this is what I was created for and this is what I am good at. So why not just make a ton of money doing this? It got very, very negative. At the first few years, it was very mental manipulation. It very quickly turned physical when I started saying like, hey, like this is getting too much. I can't handle the amount of work you're putting on my plate. And that's when it became physical and it became out of my control. And for about 3 years, so I was involved for about 5 years. For the last 3 years, that's when it hit levels that are still petrifying to think about. And I remember how I got out of it. One of my clients who I had been seeing for about, I think around 8 or 9 months, invited me down to this party in, I believe it was Miami. That's what I was told. I think it was actually, I'm blanking on the name right now. Somewhere in Florida, a very rich area. And I was flown down there on a private jet. And when I walked in, it was a trafficking ring. And I remember walking in and I looked around and my first thought was my entire body just shut down. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. I walked in and I went, my life is over. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. I was just like, the worst of the worst that you can think of, I saw in that place. Like, everyone's talking about save the children. I saw that for my own eyes. It's very real. I have no idea what happened. The only thing I can come up with is that God stepped in and saved my life. The guy who brought me down and his original plan was to sell me, decided to buy me back and put me in a car, looked at me and said, I'm sorry. Did not say a single word the rest of the trip back to West Virginia. And I literally within an hour of landing on the plane, I called my dad and I was like, I'm moving home tomorrow. And he was like, why? I was like, I can't tell you, I'll be home tomorrow. And I hightailed it out and I moved back, changed all of everything, all my information. And I kind of went into hiding and I was like on the run for a little bit of just trying to stay away. I was still involved with my trafficker. And I told him about this and he was like, no, like he was very supportive of me moving home and tried to get me to continue in the lifestyle when I did move home, which lasted for about 6 months. However, the physical aspect of our relationship, like physical force, became to a point where he put me in the hospital, and it was one of those things where my brain snapped and I was like, you're either going to kill me or I need to get out of this. So I did. I kind of just mustered up all the courage I had and found my way out of that relationship, and then kind of walked into a season of trying to figure out my life. And I did. I went through, are we going into the after part right now? Or?
I think we can let everyone share a little bit just for time's sake. And then, yeah, we can do more of these and stuff too. But yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And just, you know, coming from that vulnerable side of being, you know, open about the violence and all those things. And I think we all kind of have that in common, is like you get to a point where the same thing with myself, actually having mild traumatic brain injury from all the concussions that I experienced during 10 years, which is why I can't write very well. I can speak. So that's how I spoke my book in a day. But when you get to that point where it's like, you know, they're going to kill me if I stay, it's just like something goes off in your mind. And that's how I was able to fake my death and escape to Thailand. Same thing, and just start over. So I think it's like your body finally gets the message, and then your brain's like, or your brain finally gets that message, like, okay, you're gonna die. And then you rescue yourself, you save yourself. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Kayla, if you want to share now.
Yeah, a lot of similarities I heard in both Jennelle and Kayla. Like you were saying, Jennelle, there's so many things that are, I feel like with the traffickers that we deal with, they're like cut out of the same bread, but they'll do anything when they're scrambling. When you start waking up and you start trying, like you start putting pieces together, or people start giving you hints as to what's going on, I feel like they scramble and they start using any tactics that they can. So for me, mine went from, so I was in a 10-year domestic violence marriage where there was a lot of physical violence. He was in the military, so he had PTSD really bad from going overseas. And so I was held hostage by him. He, you know, almost took my life. I had to have him locked up into an institution. So when, and I was also working I figured, you know, what else do you do? I have no high school diploma. I dropped out to get married. So what do you do for money? You go work at bars, because that's what I learned, is that like I can make the most amount of money in the least amount of time if I'm working at a bar. And so for me, I went, I started working at some bars, and that's kind of where drugs and alcohol came into play, where I was using a lot of alcohol to, you know, because that's what a lot of other people were doing in the restaurant industry. They would all drink together and things like that. And that is where, and also you can, so Operation Underground Railroad just put out my story on their YouTube channel. So if you want to hear kind of like a longer version of like from like childhood to like, you know, to then, you can go on there and look at that page. But basically mine was a Romeo pimp. There was other pimps that were forceful, that were all surrounding me at the same time. And for me, what made it very dangerous for me, and back to the question, the original question that was asked was, is it like the movies? It's like the worst movies that you've watched about trafficking. It's the ones that make you be like, there's no way this is real. It's worse than that. So when you talk about like what Hollywood makes up of it, or like people being stolen, and then there's like this happy ending of like people coming back, there's just not that. And for me, the same thing happened to me, where, I mean, from day one, I tried to get out because I knew something was wrong. I knew there was something wrong with the situation, and things escalated. At first, he was a Romeo pimp. He knew that the domestic violence wasn't going to work on me, because that's what had happened with my previous marriage. So he knew that he was going to have to play nice with me if he wanted me to comply. So I had massive like trauma bonding, Stockholm syndrome. I mean, I didn't even know. I was, I would say at the major point of my, which the worst part of the trafficking for me was at the end, was when I was trying to get away from him, and when people started finding out about him, or they started asking him, why does she look so sick? What is wrong with her? Where my body was actually starting to show. I was so bruised up. I was so little. I was malnutrition. People were starting to, which would just escalate the violence even more for him, because then he would blame me because I looked a certain way. But he was doing that to me. And so for me, like Jennelle was saying, the moment had come. I was in a hotel room, and the moment had come where I just had an inspiration that I knew that if I opened my door one more time, I was going to die. And so I did not open my door one more time. And I've had many experiences. I mean, it's really hard to tell your story, because there is just such a massive amount of trauma just in a 24-hour period that you can't even process. You know what I mean? You can't even tell. When you tell your story, it's like, what part of my story do I tell? Do I tell that night? Do I tell that night? And you never know what's going to pop up. But for me, it was a situation, and I had traffickers. I didn't have a situation where I walked into a trafficking ring, but I had definitely had pimps try to trade me or sell me, or, you know, decide what to do with me because I wasn't compliant. So again, my website is Renegade Passion, because I will claim renegade all day long. Because in the streets, a renegade is someone who stands up for themselves against pimps. And that's kind of what I was known for. I was trafficked in Seattle, which is very big on trafficking. I mean, you can spot pimps and prostitutes just literally on the street. And so it's a really hard thing to even help a survivor. So what my 501c3 hopefully is going to do when I'm able to open that up is like be that that place that you know, there's always like, at least for me, whenever I tried to get help or tried to get out, there was always like these pots of money that are like meant for one certain thing. You know, like right now I'm going through like trying to get victims assistance program, and it's like, well, when did the incident occur? And it's like, well, what day are you talking about? Because this is 6 years that we're talking about. So, you know, there's all these barriers. And what my dream is to just use the gifts and talents that I have to support, or at least get going, this 501c3, so that I can really be like that place that's like, you know what, you need gas in your car, here is a gas card. Like, there's no questions asked. Like, you don't have to explain why you need it. And so that's kind of what I've been focusing on. And I think, again, I have to owe a lot of me getting away to my higher power, to my God, to my universal spirit, because I would not have, he literally told me when to run, and I ran on foot to a hospital, and I moved out of state, and I haven't changed my name, but I am going after my traffickers, so there's like some things I can't really say, it might like ruin the case and stuff like that, you know, but it's just been like, so yeah, I would love to talk about the healing part as well, if that's something that comes up, because that's been, you know, when you talk about the percentage of people that make it out, it's like cool that I made it out, but like, you know, excuse my language, holy hell, how the fuck do you survive? How do you survive what you've seen? And how do you help people understand how to help you and why you're so damaged? You know, and I think that's the thing that like people don't want to talk about. They don't, I took a sex trafficking webinar one time, and they said it takes the resources of 14 advocates of domestic violence, just regular domestic violence, which is horrible in itself, but it takes 14 advocates, or the resources of one domestic violence advocate, to even help a girl get out. Mm-hmm. So, you know, things like this that Jennelle is putting on, and like having these open conversations and things like that is so important, because it's just like, it's like, where is the help for people that are the survivors that are on here, that are like right now, we are fighting for our healing. Every morning we wake up, we're fighting these traumas that are inside our bodies that have happened to us, the mental, the emotional. We're trying to put ourselves back together and still be in society, you know? And so these things are so important to have, and so important to talk about, and so important to get involved in, because it's a monster that we can't fight alone. And obviously we all have the same passion for the fact that we were preyed on, you know, and dealing with those emotions around that, and being able to support each other in that, you know, because none of us deserve the hurt that we went through, but the light that we offer to other people is the blessing in all of that, you know, because I do know that I've only been out for less than 2 years. It'll be 2 years in September that I ran away. And I know that I've helped more people than I ever helped when I was trafficking, you know, being trafficked. So I'm grateful to be here. And if we want to talk about healing, I'm down for that. I'm down for whatever, you guys. I'm just here with you guys. I'm really present with you guys here. So thank you.
I thank you. Thank you so much, Kayla. I'm just going to jump in real quick, Irma. I think we should definitely have another, you know, like schedule another one where we can talk more about healing and the aftermath. And honestly, that's really what Beyond Freedom's mission is, and what we do is we holistically rehabilitate victims of human trafficking, taking them from product to person, from surviving to thriving. And we do not, you know, if we have funds, we give it. We don't ask questions. We just say, okay, you need it. This is what we're going to do. And because frankly, you know, nobody helped me, because when I got out, I was too old. People thought, well, you're too old. You're not a young girl. And I was like, yeah, but I was trafficked for 10 years and I have an infant and I'm homeless. Is there anything? And so, or I wasn't faith-based enough to fit into these programs. So I just commend you for your heart in sharing that, Kayla, because we all are going through healing every day. And just because, you know, we're doing this, and just because I have this nonprofit doesn't mean that I don't still wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I'm going to die and can't breathe and my limbs go numb and I can't even dial 911 and my son's laying in bed next to me. And thankfully that hasn't happened in a while. And thankful for all the people that stay on the phone with me when I go through those episodes. So it's very real. And that's why we have Beyond Freedom. And that's why we work with healers around the world that coach our girls one-on-one through every kind of healing modality you can imagine. We have it. So I'm so stoked to have this opportunity to give you a platform. And I know we only are supposed to be on for an hour. Do we have time?
No. There's no cutoff. There's no cutoff time. Okay. We can go for as long as we want. So no worries.
I feel like we should have Tina's share, and then maybe we do another one where we can get more into the healing and what's life like after, and how do we heal? How do we pick up the pieces? Right. How do we make money, etc.
And I do have a few more questions that after Tina, I do have a few more questions. And then we also have some audience questions too. So Tina, take the floor. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you all for having me here. This was like a fun little last minute deal, which I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I was coming to watch, but now I get to be a part of it. So now I'm really excited. So again, just going to reiterate this because everybody has said it, lots of similarities, but lots of differences. So for me, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. I was with multiple families, adopted, I had legal guardians, then I had another set of legal guardians, so I'd flip-flop from house to house. Never in the foster care system, but I guess you could say it like that for understanding purposes. And none of these families were able really to understand me. So I was very sexually active as a kid, and then moving forward into that kind of gave me this idea that my worth came from what I could give to men. And so I actually stumbled upon my trafficker completely randomly. I had just gotten out of jail for crimes that I did not commit. I was sleeping in my car, eating out of trash cans, completely like 1,000 miles away from my friends, my family, anybody that I knew, because I just moved away to start a new life, and start a new life I did. So one day when I was walking down the street trying to sell any belongings that I had, and I'm actually a hairstylist and cosmetologist by trade, so I had a bunch of cosmetology and nail equipment, and I had only been in the state of Colorado for a couple months before I was put in jail, released after 6 weeks, and then left to be homeless and then carless because my car had broken down. So as I was walking down the street, I hear someone honking, and normally I'm used to this. This is, catcalling and things like that are a norm for women. And normally I would ignore it, but for some reason this time I didn't. And I look over and there's this beautiful man in this dark green Lexus, and I'm like, I'm getting in the car with him. So I walked across the street. He asked me if I needed a ride. I said yes. He offered to take me to the pawn shops. We talked. I'm seemingly a very open person. So when I was telling him about the fact that I had only been in the state for a couple weeks and I didn't have any family or friends here, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, I could just tell him all the things. What does he know, right? Well, what he really did was he used all that information to convince me to start doing ads online. So I had actually told him that my only option really was to go walk the track, which in terms is go sell myself on the street. And he asked me if I'd ever done it before, and I said no. And he said, well, you're going to get yourself killed out there. You should do it like this. So I started on Backpage, and he told me everything in the book. We're going to get you that salon you've always wanted. Because like I said, I was a hairstylist. I told him I wanted my own salon. I told him that I wanted all of these things. And he was like, we're gonna get all of those things for you, like we're gonna we're gonna stack money and blah blah blah. And then I was like, well, I need the hours at a salon to actually open my salon, or else I'm not going to be able to. So I actually worked a full-time job as a salon manager for Regis Corporation while I was being trafficked by what I thought was my boyfriend. And it started out so innocent, and he would drive me to all my calls, and he was like my bodyguard, and he was like, oh, I will, since you have a hard time managing your money, let me help you manage it. And it really was like this whole deal of like, we're gonna get you everything you want, everything you need, and your dreams are gonna come true. And I believed him because I was 20 and nobody had ever given me like that kind of solidification, like they were gonna be there for me throughout chasing my dreams. So after about a year-ish into it, he started to try to convince me to recruit other people. And I was very not okay with that, because in my head, this is my boyfriend. This is someone that I'm in love with. And I thought we were going to get married and we were going to do all these things. And I was only going to do this for a little while. It wasn't supposed to last this long. And so that kind of put me off a little bit, but I was so bonded to him that like you couldn't convince me otherwise. It was just like, okay, like you're not a pimp, you're my boyfriend, and you know what, if that's what we have to do to get me my salon, then sure, bring some other girls in. But that didn't last very long because I scared them all away because I wanted him for myself, of course. And this didn't really sit all that well with him. And so he started realizing the things that I was doing to make these girls leave. And then that's when he started to get violent. And we actually had another, the last girl that he had invited in was one of our previous girls that he had trafficked. That was her daughter, and he had known their family for a while, and her mom was trafficked and also prostituted herself. And so when I scared her away, then we were able to recruit her daughter. And I tried everything to get her out of there, and I was like, anything that I could do, and she just wouldn't leave. And sooner or later, he stopped paying attention to me, and exactly, he stopped paying attention to me. As I was supposed to be, excuse my French, bottom bitch, and that was my place, that was my title, and I was very proud of that. And then it seemed like he was pinning us against each other in order to like get us to make more money, because if I was making more money than she was, then of course I got to keep my place, and then vice versa. So he kind of pinned us against each other, and he stopped taking me to my calls. The bottom is always on top. Yes, ma'am. And I had to go to my calls all by myself. I was working 40 hours a week, sometimes more, giving him all my tips. He had my paycheck card that I got all my paychecks on. He got all the money that I made from all of my dates. And finally, I was so pissed off that I was doing this all by myself that I actually started to yell at him. And there is one thing that you don't do. You don't yell at daddy. And but I didn't even care at this point. I was so furious that like I felt like my position was being taken away. That was the only thing that I felt worthy and proud of. And he was letting this other girl take my spot. And so I started just yelling at him, and he put a loaded gun in my face. And the reason that I knew, or I feel like I didn't stop yelling, was because I literally just didn't care. I was hoping that if I just kept yelling, he would just shoot me right there. And he didn't, obviously. Hey, I'm still here. But I think he didn't do it because the other girl was like on the couch, like watching this whole thing take place. And so after that, I got really quiet. I just kind of went to work, and then I, tried to be the most obedient little girl that I could be. And all the while, he didn't know that I had been waiting for a time for me to leave, because just like everyone here has said, if I didn't get out soon, I was going to die in the lifestyle. I was going to lose my life, whether it was to him or a trick. I didn't know, but I was going to get out, and I had to before I lost my life. And exactly. And so one day I just decided that I was going to stay home from a call that they were going to go on. He asked me if I wanted to go with. And I said, well, no, Daddy, I don't, because I don't want to miss any money. And of course he's thinking like, that's my girl, right? Like, hell yeah. All the while he didn't know that that was the day that I left. I called my sister. I told her everything. She helped guide me through getting all my stuff, and I drove away that day. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that women that are like people that aren't youth are still the ones that are able to be manipulated. Like, I am a very intelligent person. I had a full-time job. You would think, Tina, how could you let him do that to you? But then you also have a whole job. Like, you work, you're a manager. And the thing is, it was so much more than just the job. It was the addictive lifestyle. I was addicted to him. I was addicted to keeping him. I was addicted to the money. I developed a dissociative disorder. Like, it's all very it's so much more complicated than just like, oh, well, why didn't you just leave? And I feel like that's the biggest thing, that's the one question that we have to stop asking survivors is, why didn't you just leave? Because you'll never understand unless you've been through it why it takes us the time that it takes us to actually get out and to actually decide to go.
Yeah.
So
thanks so much for sharing, Tina. It's so true about that question. I'm sure we can all agree that we got that I've been asked that. Why didn't you just leave? And the thing is, I drove myself to work and to my dates. I drove in Porsches, Lamborghinis to work, and Range Rovers, and the cars that my son's like, when are you gonna buy one? Why'd you have a Lamborghini back then? I'm like, geez, like, give me some time to build a life. But what you said is so powerful. We've been asked that question so many times, and people just don't understand the complexity of really what goes in it, what goes into the addiction to him. And I remember feeling that, like, oh my God, I can't lose my spot. I can't lose him. And I never really even had him. It was like, all smoke and mirrors. And I actually remember one time we watched American Pimp together, myself and all of the girls. And I still at that time did not know that I was being pimped. I was just like, and I had to remember how to hold his pinky and all these weird things that we did that were just from the movie. If you've ever seen it, you should watch it. It's a trip. And my pimp told me that he learned to pimp, get this, guys, by our lovely trillionaire, Jeff Bezos, allowed people to sell books on how to pimp online, and they would read these books while they were in prison, and then they would come out and pimp young women like myself and these other girls. So you get so addicted to the lifestyle, to holding on to this guy that's literally killing you, and it's such a mind FUCK. You don't know how to get out of it when you're in it. And what you said, you were working in the salon that whole time. I actually did a couple yoga trainings. I did a yoga training and a holistic Institute for Integrative Nutrition while I was being trafficked. And crazy to think that, I was doing all those things and still enslaved. So thank you for sharing, Tina. So like you said, so many similarities.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing that. I know it took a lot of strength sometimes, it takes a lot of strength sometimes to share your traumatic histories, you know. So thank you all for doing that. I do have one more question before we turn it over to the audience. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to DM me or put it in the group chats. But something common that we hear is that, you know, that Prince Charming that comes through and says, hey, you know, I want to court you, or I want to do this and that. And then you kind of, they use their charm, and it makes you feel like, you know, they're in love with you, and at some point it turns into trafficking. So what are some common like social cues that we can look out for, you know, because it can happen under our noses. Like if I'm staying outside the club and I'm eavesdropping on a conversation with this dude trying to like talk to a girl, what are some like common cues that we can listen out for that can, you know, let us know, hey, there's something going on here?
I kind of have a sorry, did I cut you off, Jennelle?
No, I was gonna say go ahead.
I would say when I think back to my own story, because all I have to go off of really is like my own story, and like trying to figure out like what happened, or like how could this have happened to me, like I don't understand. And what I really think about is that I had no concept of what boundaries are, and I didn't understand that boundaries are actually a way to show yourself self-love. And I think that a very big red flag that a lot of people overlook is they think someone's being nice and really interested in them, when really they're trying to get information to see what they can do with your vulnerabilities. Because I know for myself, on day one, I told him probably every trauma that had ever happened in my life, because he was the first person to ever ask me what happened to you. So I think if there's a red flag that I look at, is like, why does he want to know every detail of my life, what I like, how I tick, all my traumas, you know what I mean? I would say if someone is that forthcoming and they're not respecting the boundaries of just like a normal meeting with a person, you're probably not going to like talk about everything that's happened in your life, you know, then it's probably a red flag, and there's probably like some ulterior motive as to why they are being so nice to you, you know, and why they want to know. Because who are you to any of the other billion people on this planet? What makes you, you know, so, and the self-worth comes in there too, you know. I think having low self-worth blinded me to how vulnerable I was. And so I think being at a club or anything like that, and you have someone that is just out of the ordinary, like nice to you, and you don't really, you know, and you're just like, oh yeah, like maybe somebody finally noticed that I'm like an awesome girl. Like, you know, it's sad to say, but in this world, they're probably recruiting you. Or planning to, and it takes a long time. The process of recruitment can be sometimes 6 months longer. You know, they'll do, it doesn't cost them anything but a little bit of time and effort. So that's kind of my take on it.
Very, very insightful, Kayla. I think you hit on it. Oh my gosh, I teach actually in one of my courses for women. It's like how to say no and the power of boundaries. And it's something that you don't have boundaries if you've never been shown those in your life, you know. And the way I grew up, and where many of us grew up, you know, we didn't have clear boundaries, and we didn't value ourselves. We didn't feel good about ourselves. We didn't love ourselves because we'd suffered sexual trauma and abuse. So you just, like you said, someone comes at you and you think, oh my God, I'm this amazing woman. You don't even think you are. And it just lights you up. I would say another cue is like, if you hear someone promising like a lot of things, like, oh, I want to take you like, you know, like on my jet, or I want to take you shopping. Let's go on a shopping spree, or anything of that nature. Like, let's go and just rack up my credit card tonight, and you would look great in some red bottoms. Let's get you an Hervé, a bandage dress, or anything that's like inappropriate for someone you just met. Like to just be saying, let's go buy you all this stuff. Let's go take this vacation. Let's go do all this elaborate things. Like that doesn't happen. Even when you start dating, you know, today on Hinge now, people don't even want to take you for a meal. They want to go sit on the beach to see if they like you. All my girlfriends tell me this. I'm like, so, you know, it's not normal to say, I'm going to just rack up my card. So that would be also another really major sign. That's a big part of the grooming period, just showing you this glitter phase of all the stuff, all the bells and whistles. And yeah, I know we've all experienced that.
Can I add one too?
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
So I was thinking of when he had asked a question of like, he had said like, if you, Armand had said, if you're in a club and you see something kind of thing. For me, I was the girl that could hold a room. If you're somewhere and you see a girl that is very confident, especially in like her body and her sexual abilities, I was groomed to be able to hold a room. Like when you're involved in this life, your pimp is grooming you to be able to control the man, that you can get whatever you need, however much money you need. So you need to know, you need to know exactly how to do what they want to do. So for me, I was always like the confident, if I walked into a room, you knew I walked into a room. Every man knew I walked into a room. So if you see a girl that's like that, that's a red flag, definitely. From the girls that I have met in my time of it, and as well as for myself, like most girls aren't that confident in their sexual ability when it comes to men. So that would be especially if you're out in public and you see someone like that, that would be a red flag for me.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful. Also, just kind of piggybacking off that, it's sad because we want to see more sexually empowered women, but often we don't. You know, I was that same way. I definitely was. You know, anywhere I walked, it was known that I was there, and it was actually encouraged by, you know, what we dressed. I mean, we would go buy the skimpiest clothes, and I actually back then was in, you know, the best shape of my life because we worked out 5 days a week and we trained Muay Thai 5 days a week with one of the best Muay Thai fighters in the world. I actually trained with the first women UFC fighter, Gina. And so yeah, I don't know if you guys know who she is if you watch UFC, but anyway, so we were really groomed and trained to look the hottest, to be the hottest, to always have on the Louis Chanel, the Gucci, the Prada, to have your ass hanging out, to have your boobs, you know, there, and to always be showing skin and always have bling on, so that when you walk somewhere, people knew. But this was what I wanted to add real quick, and then I know there's more questions, is that if you also see several girls with one guy, major red flag. I know that sounds like a little weird, but it's true. If you see you know, very scantily clad women with a lot of flashy stuff and just one guy and maybe 3 or 4 girls, that's that. When do you see that? Maybe in guys' fantasies, but not certainly in reality, right? So yeah.
Thank you all for sharing that. Do we have any audience questions? If you are comfortable asking on video, don't hesitate to ask them directly.
Hi, Armand, can you hear me?
Hey, Andrea, how you doing?
I wanted to kind of share a story about a woman I met who truly opened my eyes, and follow up with a question after that, if that's okay.
Oh, for sure, yeah, no worries.
Okay, cool. Hi, and it's truly amazing to hear all of your remarkable stories. I'm trying not to get teary-eyed, but just sorry. It's so I guess to start the story, so I actually had a project where I portrayed a sex traffic victim, and they actually they brought in a woman who was, sorry, let me wait a little bit, and I'll continue talking in a little bit.
No worries, Andrea. Thank you so much for opening up, and you know, take your time. Feel free to take your time and to ask this later on.
I
Michael,
think
would
I'm
you like?
okay now.
Okay,
I,
okay,
I,
okay.
I'm cool. Whew, okay, got a good breath there. So, okay, so the story is that they brought in a woman, and just to exclude, personal identity, we'll call her Courtney. So they actually brought in a sex trafficked woman for us to portray, the sex trafficked victims properly. And so, they brought her into the studio for all of us to hear her story. And, she's sitting in there in the chair, just shaking and, nearly crying. And the first moment I just told her, I said, you're an incredibly strong woman. I already sense your pain.
No worries, Andrew. Thank you. You can, feel free to um, share it later if you'd like. I know it's tough to share, so feel free to ask later on if you're willing. No pressure. But I thank you for being here.
Whenever you want me to finish, it's
No
pretty
worries, no
exciting.
worries. We can take your time. Take your time. We can come back
Okay.
to you. Yeah, we can come back to you.
Okay, whatever you prefer.
No worries. As long as you're, whatever you're comfortable with, no pressure.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to mull over the emotions because
I understand.
I feel like I just sympathize with her, and I could feel her pain. And I don't want to steal the spotlight or anything, because I know that it's nothing for me to say that to relate to it. I mean, there's no relation to that. But this woman, I just held her hand, and she hugged me instantly, and she said, "Thank you for your support and your strength." And she became a different person right then and there, and she was able to reveal her story. And her story is that she did grow up through home abuse. Her parents were drug addicts. They physically abused her. So I think how do you say, like, social workers had to come to her house at one point and take her away. She went through orphanage to orphanage, and kind of the same thing there. She had a couple of people who abused her, hopping from house to house, and just having that kind of similar story to that, where she finally felt like she had a group of people who she could trust in the orphanage. She had a very best friend who she confided in and told her everything. And this so happened to be the bottom bitch, right? And it's like they're confiding in them, finding them that there could be the only person that they can trust in the world. And you're my best friend. I owe you my life because you're the only person that I can find true happiness in, and someone I can relate to. And so she used that to tell her I guess her pimp, "Hey, I found a really pretty girl, and I think we can bring her on board." I gained her trust, and they ended up saying, "Hey, why don't you come with me? And I have a really cool group of people who I can show you the world. They'll buy you really nice things, and they'll take you to nice places. You'll be treated like a princess. They'll give you everything you've ever wanted." So she trusted her, and she went, and that's what they did for maybe a couple weeks. They gave her everything she ever wanted. She was treated like royalty. She said that this was the most amazing experience of my life. And once she ended up staying there and ran from the orphanage, they took everything away. They starved the girls there. They put them on drugs. They basically, if any of them messed up, weren't in line or tried to run away, they were all physically abused, starved, and continuing the abuse that way, right? I mean, leaving them with hardly anything in their body to even be strong enough to run away if they needed to. I mean, they kept them on a thread, And so I remember hearing her story and saying, one night I ended up getting kind of the courage to run away, and she ran to a cop, and she told the cop, I'm a prostitute. I need help. I need to run away. My pimp's gonna abuse us. Please help me." And he says, "I'll maybe help you if you do a favor for me." And that favor was a sexual favor. And after that sexual favor was done, he brought her back to her pimp. And that was in, I think in Oakland, California. And now it's like, she has no one she can trust. Her very best friend who brought her into this, the cops who she confided in and thinking that was her only source of freedom, ended up abusing her, and sending her back to the abuser. And then everyone got beaten because she had tried to escape. And so at this point, you know, years later, she's still living in the same house with the group of girls and the group of pimps. And I guess you could say she gets one day, you know, she develops a relationship with her pimp. They have a kid, and she musters up the courage to maybe one more day try to escape. And she found that in that house they had, like she said, like 10 different locks on the door.
Andrea, can I cut you off? I'm so sorry to be rude, and I appreciate you having such a passion for this issue and for wanting to share this story. And it's for some of our girls are on the East Coast. It's super late there. And
oh yeah, and I'm totally sorry. This just ends the question where it's that chance of hope.
Direct questions without maybe if we start earlier on another time, then I'm sure they would love to answer them. But like just stories right now, like it's really late for Kayla, and I know Tina as well. And
no worries.
So sorry.
No worries. This is just the question part, if I may ask. If it's okay.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's kind of, I get lost with the details, but this one day that she saw the hope, there's 10 different locks on the doors, and she saw that all of the locks were unlocked, and she was able to escape with her child and run away. And I want to ask you, was there ever a chance where you felt that there was that one open door of hope where you could start a new life, or maybe you felt the most trapped, or, you know, where you felt that there was someone looking after you? I would love to hear about that, if, you know, that kind of turning point in your life.
I think I can answer that. So as I said before, it was just like a random day where I was asked like, hey, like, do you want to come with us on this call? And I said no, that I didn't want to miss any money. Because if I went, you know, can't do 2 calls at once. So I wish that I was able to like confide in someone. My sister didn't really understand when I told her what was going on, but she understood enough that I needed to leave when I called her. So I think that for me personally, like her and my best friend were my lifeline. They had actually been planning very quickly before that to come and get me from Colorado, but I ended up leaving before they came down and got me. But just having a support system, or like if you notice that someone is disconnecting from their friends, from their family, from everything, and they're all like zeroed in on their relationship with their well, it would be their trafficker, but other people might see it as like a boyfriend or a partner, that is a huge red flag. And, you know, being there for that person, letting them know, like, I love you so much, like, you're, you know, there's so many great things about you, there's these great things, and really diving in on what those are, and just like trying to stay connected. And sometimes they'll resist, but being a presence in their life is one of the most important things that you can do for somebody if you suspect that they are being trafficked. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you so much for your question. And Tina, thank you so much for your answer. Up next, we have Michael. He wants to know, what is the main inspiration each of you can pass on to others who may have just come from a similar situation?
I'll answer that one.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, Kayla, we're just on the same wavelength.
I know we're on the same. But I just have a little something, and then you or you go, and then I'll do my little something.
You go for it.
Okay. So I would just say to never give up, and that's why I would really be interested, Jennelle, to do a panel where we're talking about the healing part of it, because I am constantly telling people, like, dear God, the statistics go down and down and down because we don't know how to fucking heal, you know? So I would say just don't give up, no matter how hard it is, no matter how bad your mind, your body, everything wants to give in. Nothing can be as bad as what we went through. And like, there's a reason that we're here. So I would just say like, and there's an acronym. I'm also in recovery. I learned it in recovery. Hope is hold on, pain ends. And so I'm constantly looking for that hope. And every day I wake up, I go outside, I drink my coffee, and I look at the sky, and I just think, oh my God, how am I even here? You know? And it's because I held on to hope. I held on to the hope of the spirit of the universe, or that something divine was going to happen, so that I could really get out and I could do the things that I need to do, that I was meant to be the woman that I was meant to be, the mom I was meant to be. It's all about the hope, never giving up and holding on to the hope. That's all I got.
Mine is similar. I was going to say to anyone who's recently coming out of this, healing is hell. But eventually you start to realize that you are the fire. And you get to this point that every day it's still hard. I don't know which one of you had said of like, I think actually all of us kind of touched on this. Like, there are days where I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want this life. I don't want this past. Please, someone just take it from me. But then there's other days like right now where I walk into this and I'm like, yeah, I am the fire. I've walked through the fire, and now I am that fire. I'm like that. You become it. And you know, it's actually something that I kind of, it's kind of like I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of the word right now. Like a tagline for my life, of like, you start to realize that like the confidence you had in like your abilities in trafficking and prostitution or escorting or whatever it may be, you can flip and have that confidence in anything else in your life. I am someone who can confidently say like, I was good at that, but I can now come in and like, if I can be as good as I was at that, I can be as good as I am at anything else I tried, because I've already been through hell, and now I can work and do everything I did over there into this. So if you're coming out of it, like, it gets better. It's hard, but it gets better, and you become such a confident, beautiful woman out of it, or man. So
Yeah, that's super powerful, Kayla. And I think just piggybacking off what everyone else has said around this, because it's such a important aspect. I mean, people like organizations like Operation Underground, I love them, obviously. I know we all do. I just want people to understand that those organizations are getting all the funding because they're rescuing women, and because it's the cool, glamorous thing to do. Guys love this organization because they go in and they kick down doors, and they have their guns, and they're undercover, and they get to wear, all this prosthetics and go and pull all these kids out. And it's fucking amazing. And we should be supporting these organizations. However, we should be supporting organizations like mine just as much, because that is literally the smallest part of this process, this cycle. Just because we've rescued a bunch of girls doesn't mean that, their lives are any better. Yeah, honestly, my life was better in the life because I knew what to expect. I knew I would get beat up if I didn't make my quota. I knew that I had to compete with other girls. I knew that I'd have to go through rapes. I knew that I'd have loaded guns held to my head. I knew that I would send myself to jail because I didn't want to get beat up because I didn't make enough money. Like, all that stuff became very normal to me. What I didn't know how to deal with is the a-holes of the religious and Christian people, faith-based organizations and people that supposedly judge, support us, but were judging me, and the organizations and the affluent people that looked down on me because of what I'd been through, and didn't want to help me and didn't want to help my son. And to this day, will still ask for validation on my nonprofit if it's real. It's like, what do you want me to show you? I can show you the letter from the IRS, So I think this is the most important part. The healing is not a project to be completed on a certain date. It is a process. So you can't say, okay, on April 21st, 2021, I'm going to be healed. No, it's not a project, it's a process. And I have taken, and my organization have taken that process, that's hell, and have made it something that is changing women's lives and giving them options to own their own power. And what you said, Kayla, was so powerful. It's like, your greatest pain does not have to be anything other than your greatest power, your greatest passion, and your greatest platform to serve the world, period. And what you said, I resonated with 1,000%, because I'm about to cross some thresholds in my business that I've never gone before. I've made, hundreds of thousands of millions in trafficking over a decade, but not for myself. And I had this belief that I couldn't do it. And for the first time now, I'm actually on my way there. And it feels so good. And what happens when I do it, Kayla, and Tina feel like, oh my God, I can do that too now, because they watched another survivor do it. That's why it's important for you guys to support nonprofits that are survivor-led, like mine, and eventually Kayla's, and etc. Because we need your support to believe in us so that we can help others believe in themselves. Yeah.
How do I even follow up with that, Jennelle? There's more questions, but I can't even speak after you. That was amazing. We do have 3 more, if that's okay with you, ladies. Awesome. Yeah. So Jessica wants a 2-parter from Jessica. Jessica wants to know, how long did it take you to come forward publicly, and what fears did you have in doing so?
I think I can answer a little bit of that. So right now I'm actually currently going after my trafficker. So me putting my story out on OUR, if the prosecutors or whatever or the defense were to get a hold of it, they could use it against me or anything that I said. But I was at a place where I am tired of my voice being muffled. And so it meant more to me to tell my story and let people know that this is a real thing than it is for me to put him away. And so that kind of tells you, and to have that kind of to risk that is huge. I mean, to come forward to testify anyway is like out of your mind scary. But to risk that and tell your story, and I think the more that you tell it, the more comfortable you get telling it, and the more that you're able to actually connect with other women that have been through the same kind of things, and you can almost by sharing your story interject and help other people to be able to spot that and to have awareness for sex trafficking. So I don't know. My answer is God. God gave me a mouth that won't shut up, and I feel really bad for any of the pimps that get in my way when I'm doing my outreach and when I have my 501c3, because I know that along with Jennelle and these other survivors that are the fire, like we're here, we're not going anywhere, and we're here to like burn the SHIT down. So we're like that's our fire. Like, we know what happened to us, we know we were prey, and we are ready to talk about it, and we're ready to do whatever it takes to help other women feel the same way that we do. And I love what you said, Kayla. Healing is excruciating. It is painful. I cry almost every night. But what keeps me going is telling my story and offering light to other people. So that's my answer to that question.
Amazing. Did anyone else want to jump in to answer the question?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, yeah, no worries. Let me see here. It was, sorry, I had it right here.
How long did it take you to come forward?
Oh yeah, how long did it take you to come forward, and what fears arise from you in doing so?
I'll share mine. Because this is a part of like empowering that I like to do. It has taken me a while. I was in a program for 8 months last year, and I graduated September 17th of last year. And I am just starting. My first one was with Tina 2-ish weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I can't answer the second one because I was in a panic attack about 3 hours ago about this live. So I don't know if it gets easier. Maybe Jennelle can answer that one. But the fears that come out of it for me are prostitute has a very heavy weight put on you. And I just feel like I'm getting it like tattooed on my forehead. And people have very horrible things to say about it. Since I've begun sharing it, I can't even repeat some of the things people have said to me. That's the fear that comes out of it, is that people that you know, people that you think that would support you, all of a sudden just say everything that your brain could think of that you're hoping no one says to you. And losing people too. Or, not, all those dreams that you have or whatever it may look, whatever those dreams may be, just not being possible. Or even with Jennelle, like I'm so happy for you that you're about to hit the threshold on your business, because like that's a fear of like, is this even possible to like do to make a life out of this kind of thing. So that's encouraging to me, and I'm so happy for you.
And that's honestly what keeps me up, is like on my darkest days, I'm like, I can't, and this is not the nonprofit, this is my for-profit business. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Cause like you said, you have that scarlet letter of you are a prostitute and like trying to date, like that. And how do you tell your story? If you tell, like I tried the approach where I tell it right away, and then people are like, fuck, they're like, I'm out of here, defriending me, blocking me. I'm like, okay, well maybe if I just try to slip it in after they see how freaking amazing I am. And then they're like, how could you keep this from me? So it's like, well, when do you say this stuff? Like, it's a very daunting thing to date with this looming over your head. And especially me, because I'm so vocal and my stuff is everywhere. And so yeah, that feeling of, I will always be known as this, no matter what I do. It's like, I don't know how many of y'all were that, but I was branded like cattle several times with my pimp's name and things on me. And so even though I've covered those up, it's just like, it does something psychologically. Like we brand our cattle to say, this is mine. And when I sell this, I'm going to make the big bucks when it goes off to get slaughtered. Right. So when you have your pimp's name tattooed on you numerous times, multiple places, it's like they're stamping you, like you will forever be a prostitute. Good luck if you leave, because no one's ever going to want to be with you. And then the fact that I've taken such a bold stance on sex and sexuality doesn't make it easy for me to find a partner. But at the moment, I'm so fulfilled in my business and my raising my son in this work. And but yeah, for me, it is like an obsession for me to cross these thresholds in my business, because I know once I do that, then it's like, I did it. And now Kayla believes she can do it. And other Kayla believes she can do it. And, you know, Tina, if she hasn't already, like, it just gives everyone confidence. It's the same thing that happened with Bannerstein, the guy who ran the Minute Mile, right? They said it was, or is it like the 4-minute mile? They said it was impossible, right? He did it. What happened within that year of him running the 4-minute mile? Like 20 other people did it. Why? Because a belief is just a thought you keep thinking, and it's an emotion with certainty that gets tattooed in your soul. So because he did it, now everyone who can't run a 4-minute mile, right? If you train hard enough. So it's that obsession with my business to say, I will be the first survivor on the Forbes magazine. Like, I'm going to do that. I will do that. And it's like, I don't see anything else but that. And on the days when I just want to quit because I just can't take another person saying, I can't support you because of what you do in your for-profit. Or, you know, people saying, yeah, I wanted to be on your show, but I can't do the orgasmic life. And, you know, I'm just like, I can't take it, you know, and I'm just like, why do I even do this? Why do I even stay on the phone with girls when they want to kill themselves? Why? Nobody wants to help me. I'm having to do this alone, you know, and then I have a son that I have to raise so that he doesn't become a pimp. Like, I have to raise him so that he doesn't think it's okay to treat women the way men are trained to treat women today. So it is a real problem that we've got to support survivors, because if we don't, we are just perpetuating this $150 billion global industry that's fueling a ton of our economies, and that nobody, you know, wants to fix other than let's just rescue them. And so, you know, in short, your question of like, how long did it take me? It took me several years, and I came out in a public speaking class, and I didn't even know what had happened to me. I was researching for a assignment on human trafficking in my persuasive speaking class. And I was studying and reading up on all these girls that had been trafficked. And I thought, oh my God, like, this was me. It was literally like, that's what happened. And so then I came out in front of 50 students at Orange Coast College, in front of, you know, a professor who'd been teaching communications for over 50 years. She says, I don't know where you learned to speak like that, but you will be my first student to make it to TED. And sure enough, later, you know, less than like 9 months later, I get, you know, those booked. And now I just, like Kayla said, I can't shut up, and I don't care what people think about me. And it's the best feeling in the world.
All these mic drops, Jennelle. I can't even ask the next question for you. No, actually, your answer segues into the next question. Tara from LA wants to know, what do you feel is the most important thing we can all do right now in service of survivors and the entire issue of trafficking? So I can repeat that. Yeah, let me repeat that. What do you feel is the most important thing we can do right now in service of survivors and the entire issue of trafficking?
Research where you can find, sorry if I just cut in, but research these places like Jennelle's 501c3 that actually like is helping. Like, I called Jennelle, you know, a few weeks ago, just bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, I can't find help for my freaking self. I need help. And you know what she did? She's right. She lived up to her standard of like sending me a $50 gift card so I could put gas in my car, sending me some maternity clothes because I'm pregnant and I'm scared and I have all these internal issues, and like, and like researching these, like, and on my website as well, like I'm starting to build it up to be like anything that's on my website is something that you should donate to, because they're the ones that are really helping the survivors. Don't give to the places that don't know how to help, because they sit there with money and it doesn't go to the survivor. If you have money and you have the ability or the resources or the donations or anything like that to help a legitimate agency that is helping the healing of survivors, do it, because we are 1% or less. You are looking at 1% or less of survivors. And part of that is our healing. We need resources for healing. I need resources for healing. Even though I help other women, I still need them. And so do other survivors. So what I feel like people can do is find out, you know, buy things that matter. Buy these Don't Be Pimp shirts. These are going to go towards a 501c3. Give to Jennelle's 501c3. Give to these places that you know are gonna give it to the survivor, and it's gonna have a lasting effect on these survivors. So these survivors aren't killing themselves because they can't live with what they've been through. You know, let's help the survivors. Let's give to places like Jennelle. Let's do it. That's why I'm here, you know, is to that's what matters. Like, stop giving to people that aren't giving to survivors. They're not helping us. They're not helping us.
Yeah, it's so sad, and it's so true. It's there's just a lot of good in the world, but there's also a lot of not so great in the world, and we want to focus on the good, but at the same time, you know, having this platform to educate people as to like what's really going on, what our needs are, and how you can support. And people want to throw money at the large organizations because that's what's thrown out there, and that's like the trending stuff. But if you really support the grassroots, just like you support your local farmers market, like, you know, yes, Whole Foods is great, but I rather give my money to like the local farmers that are doing it super clean and that are, you know, they're doing their best to give us the most purest food. It's the same thing with like our organization. Like, we're doing our best. We don't have any, you know, I don't know. We don't have the resources that these other organizations do, but I guarantee you I've reached more women and survivors through Beyond Freedom than these ones that have boards full of, you know, successful Caucasian men and women and tons of money. And where's all this money going? If a survivor comes for help, they're like, oh, you need to fill out 5,000 forms. If a survivor asks me for help, I'm just like, sure. And I'm going to send it right away. Might take me a few days to get it to the mail, but other than that, it's coming. Or I'll send a Venmo, you know, or I'll send a PayPal or whatever it is to try to get it done. And I won't just do that. I'll say, hey, do you want some other opportunity resources? Because we have this woman that's offering, you know, she needs an assistant, or this woman that's doing that. I'm always trying to offer more ways for women to make more money too, not just a one-stop shop. Like, here's some money. Yeah, but let's get money coming in multiple streams of income. Because for me, it's about creating entrepreneurs out of survivors. Like, because that's what most of us want to be. We never want to work for someone again. Can you imagine? Like, y'all don't want to work for people. Most of y'all are entrepreneurs yourself. And we've been exploited, so we sure as hell don't want to. I mean, there's some survivors that do. They go out and they make it in the world. But I know a lot of us don't.
Oh, Tina, is your hand up? I think I saw your hand up. Is that? Oh, no. Okay. No worries.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I was just mesmerized. But for me, just for that last question, just believe survivors. And also, if we could remove the language of like, I can't believe that happened to you, or oh my gosh, like, that's so horrible, like I could never believe that, because that invalidates our experience when people say things like that. So just supporting survivors and just being like, oh my gosh, like, I could never imagine what you've been through. What can I do to help? What can I do for you in this moment that would help you? It's a really simple question that you could literally ask anyone. And that right there is probably one of the questions that we barely ever get asked. Like, no, everybody thinks that they know what we need as survivors, what we need for healing, what we need for resources, no. Ask survivors what they need, how to support them, and stop making them feel like their stories are so unbelievable, because that shit happened to them. And yeah, it happened. So you got to believe it and support them.
I'm going to add on to that of like what you should be saying to survivors as well. Stop asking us questions about our past. What we share, like, on public, awesome, but 9 times out of 10, I personally, and I'm sure they're going to echo me, I don't want to talk about the details. I don't want to remember them. I don't want to talk about them. I don't want anyone else to know them. And to be completely honest, you don't really want to know them either. So when people ask that, of like, they hear my story and they're like, oh my gosh, what was it like? It was living hell. That's what it was like. That's all you need to know. Like, ask, Yeah, you're laughing. You had that question too. Like, I'm staring at these people. I'm like, why do you want to know what it was like? Like it's almost like, honestly, to me, it feels like you're almost fetishizing that word,
Yeah, that's
my past, right? Like, I'm like, why do you want to know all the nitty gritty details? Like, it's not any of your concern. And I don't want to remember it. I don't want to relive it. By having to talk about it, I have to relive it. So like, don't ask those questions, but like Tina said, like, ask how you can help. Like, ask like, not only how can I support you as like if you're talking to me, Kayla, how can I support you? Or Kayla, what are your, like, I know you personally. What are the organizations you support? I want to support them with you. Like, that would mean, if someone said that to me, I probably would bawl into a puddle of tears. I would just be so overjoyed to hear someone say that like my story impacted them so much that they now are going out and providing resources with, even if it's $10 a month, like, that means that can, like you said, like, that could have gotten, your $10 could have added to Kayla's $50 gift card because you donated to Jennelle's thing. And now she's out there being able to put gas in her car. Like, you don't think about that kind of thing. Like, every dollar counts. And it's so important to fund organizations, specifically organizations that are survivor run. Like, all these big organizations are awesome. And like, I appreciate what they're doing, but there's a gap of like understanding when you're not a survivor. It's just different. So like, look for organizations that are survivor run, so that they understand and know how to accept and like understand the people that they're trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really good, Kayla.
That was really, really good. Our final question is actually a good way to wrap this up. Maria from Scotland wants to know, do you think governments across the globe are doing enough in, say, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, India, Canada, Eastern Europe, USA, Australia? Do you think the United Nations is doing enough? And also, second part is, what laws would you implement to help survivors?
Definitely not legalizing prostitution, because that is the worst idea they've ever had. I know there are a lot of countries that have, and the United States has proposed that. But honestly, that mindset that if it's legal, it's safe is asinine. Sorry, but it is. Only because if you were to legalize it, just because you're legalizing rape doesn't mean that it's not still rape, or it's not still exploitation just because you're legalizing it. And if anything, it'll skyrocket, because now women and men and people who are exploited will not feel like they can report it, because now it's part of their job description. Like, you're making exploitation legal, and you're dismantling any sort of help that these people could receive, because now their job is like, it's okay to exploit them and abuse them, instead of helping them find healing and actually contributing to the stopping of exploitation.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jennelle, do you want to add to that?
No,
I thought I saw you speaking, sorry.
Yeah, I was getting just a lot of stuff that I was having to handle as well. No, I think this is a topic I'd love to go into actually next time more. I would love to talk about this more, but yeah, I think, I think that the UN is doing their best to control a very like prolific pandemic, really. If you want to be worried about anything, it shouldn't be COVID, it should be this, because this was happening all during COVID, and they were selling girls during COVID, and whatever. So I think they're doing the best that they can, but I think the main issues that we have to tackle is really the aftercare, because when you have a reusable product that's disposable, There will never be an end to this, ever, 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 ever. I do not care how many women they rescue. They will go back into the life or they will kill themselves. End of story. And the pimps will just go out and traffickers will just go out and get 10 more girls for that one that lost their life or that went back. So the key to ending this is what I'm doing, what Kayla's doing in the faith-based community, is teaching people to have a healthy connection to their sensuality, to rewrite what sex looks like, to rewrite how we educate our children around sex, to rethink how we're looking at porn and the type of porn that we're going to be consuming, because people are not going to stop consuming porn, but we need to be making porn that is more edifying to women, because the porn that's out there is how our children are getting educated at the age of 11, by the way. Most of them actually stumbling on porn and not looking for it. They're watching that and it's feeding their conscious and subconscious with these unrealistic expectations and violence towards women that's only perpetuating more sexual deviance. And as they grow up, they don't get off anymore, just the normal way. And then they want to go into more darker, dirtier porn. And, you know, the number one of the top porns is like daddy, stepdaddy, stepdaughter. Like this is one of the top porns that sells. And so we got to rewrite how we look at sex, how we look at porn, how we look at educating our kids around sex. And then we have to focus on rehabilitation just as much as we do rescuing.
Thank you so much for that. We've hit the 2-hour mark. We've been with you for as long as a movie. You've all been amazing. I thank you, all you lovely ladies, for being here. Tina had to jump off; her phone just died. But I mean, before we go, is there just one final? I would even want to say inspirational message you can leave us on, like on a high note. This is a very heavy topic, of course, but maybe is there something you want to leave us with that's on a very high note before we go?
I would say if you get the opportunity, Operation Underground Railroad really did a beautiful video for me. And if you get the chance, there's 3 parts to it, but watching that last one, I think that you will be able to feel the spirit, and it's like a 3-minute little clip. So you can go onto my website and it's just on that front page. But I would just say that, like, there is, in my belief, I know that there is something, a higher power out there, a God, angels that have just been surrounding me since day one. And I feel like I'm going to continue to do the work that I was meant to do. And I feel very like, even though like all this like horrible stuff and like trudging up all this stuff all the time and like healing is like so messy and like all these things, like, man, what an awesome God that he entrusted me to come down here and go into that hell. And he knew I was going to do research for him, and I was going to come out and I was going to fight for him, and I was going to help other women, you know? And so I feel so blessed that he entrusted me to be a choice daughter that has a voice and that can articulate things. And so I want to just say that, like, despite what all of us have been through and every single survivor has been through, what we're doing with it now is the hope. And so I want to leave you with that, is that, like, I don't wish, some days it's a lot, you know, to think about what I've been through, but I don't wish any other path, because I am who I am today, and I know what I offer other people, and I offer them light, and that is more powerful than any of the evil that we've been talking about today. So yeah, just keeping the faith and like keeping connection and just never giving up hope. And I'm just really grateful again to be here and be able to, I'm very proud to be able to say that I'm a survivor.
I'll give my little hope speech as well.
Please.
I'm gonna tack on to what she said. I am proud to be a survivor as well. I would not be the woman I am today without my past. I probably would be a turtle, just closed up in my shell. It's what I've been through, I would not wish on the worst of the worst. It's hell. But from someone who almost 2 years ago to the day tried to take my life for the 12th time, I am now standing here today. I love who I am. I love what I do. I love life. And I'm someone who did not think I'd live past the age of 25, and I turned 26 this year. And, you know, this is such a hard topic to talk about. And people who see it, it's like, you see it and you're just like, ugh, I don't, like, who could ever do something like that? Or like, what is it like coming out of it? Like, have hope in this, is that there are women like the three of us here and Tina, and there's other women who are coming out of this on fire and on just empowered, and we are breaking down walls and breaking chains of, you know, if you believe in, like, I believe in God, so he's my power and stuff. And then whatever other ways of, like, Jennelle is doing it through being empowered in, like, your own sexuality and yourself. And there's so many powerful women and men that are coming out of this, that are running as hard as we can to bring as many people along as we can, because we've been through there, and we're willing to reach down into those same exact places and pull as many people out as we can, and have hope in that, and lock arms with people like us, because we are pulling the people out of hell. And those people that are being brought out of hell are going to be just as powerful and just as beautiful as the rest of us. And that goes into the same thing of, like, support organizations that are doing aftercare, that are doing healing. Like, you will not survive if you do not go through the healing process. I relapsed on my own prostitution 3 times. I tried to get out 3 times, and every single time I went right back in, because my mental state was so low and everything else was so low, that once I went through that healing, now I am who I am. And like Kayla said, I wouldn't change my past. I go through times where I wish I didn't have it, but I'm so blessed to be able to be the woman I am today because of what I've went through. So have hope in that.
I just love what both the Kayla said, and I just feel so blessed to be in the middle of you two ladies right now, because I'm right in the middle, and just to be a small part in just such a massive part of the world, because your reach is so powerful. And I'm inspired by you both, and I'm just so grateful to have met both of you, because you give me the will and the courage to go on the days that I've given up on humanity. And it's women like you that won't let me quit this. Even when I say I'm done, I'm focusing on my business, I will still, but I can't do this anymore, because I can't go up against all the hell that I get and all the walls, when I'm like, I don't understand why you can't support what I'm doing. Even if you don't believe with everything I do, like, why can you still not support this? So closing words, I think that this has been great. And if you guys leave this conversation moved, then, I failed tonight, and Irman has failed, because it's not about moving you to tears or even educating you, because education and knowledge without any kind of action is fairly useless. And you guys all now know. So once you know, you honestly can't unknow. So we can't ever go back in time and undo this. So my call, my calling to you is that you be a part of the solution, because Beyond Freedom is about solutions. We are not about talking about the stuff over and over and over and over. We are about solutions. We have solutions. And it's just up for you to decide how you want to be a part of the solution. Maybe it's just sharing this video, which takes what? 1 second. Maybe it's supporting Irman and saying, hey, I would like to get my church involved in supporting one of these or in hosting one of these so we can get you guys a bigger platform. Maybe it's being a volunteer to help me talk to women that don't want to live anymore, that should want to live. Because I honestly can't do this work alone. I have a son to raise, and I have to keep a roof over my head so we can keep having Beyond Freedom. So I need citizens like yourselves to help me in this fight, but not a fight to end something, in this fight to keep survivors thriving and to get them out of the 3 Ps, which is poverty, panic, and PTSD, and to move them into the other 3s of purpose, passion, and prosperity. That's what we need. So I don't care if you say you have no budget, there's something you can do to help us in this organization, to help these young women. Maybe it's buying some of her shirts. Maybe if you don't have the money for the shirts, putting it on your thread, sharing this video, supporting an event. If you have a business and you need a tax write-off, donate to us. If you have a talent or a skill, you can offer it. Beyond Freedom is creating and I'll leave with these words, I promise. I'm starved, I haven't eaten. I've been out in the pool all day with my son, so I'm hangry, but I'm moved at the, your willingness to be here, all of us. So, we are creating this program that's turnkey from product to person, 7 F's to thriving. Every aspect of it is another thing that survivors need to heal. The program is already being implemented. We're still adding on. This will be available to any survivor anywhere in the world, and all they need is a code. And we have live healers. We have healers from every walk of life, from cranial sacral to NSA to hypnotherapists to LaDonna's, the Tony Robbins coaching method, to right now we have a breathwork person. We have every type of thing. We just purchased a piece of equipment that helps to, it's electromagnetic frequencies that when you wrap it around the brain, it removes PTSD in one use. Survivors are getting results. So we need to get more of these to our girls. If girls are in the OC in LA, they can come and get treated. But so these types of things that we need. So I just want to challenge you tonight to not be moved, to not feel like, wow, that was amazing, or to not even congratulate us, but action, to do something. And I don't want to tell you what to do because I know nobody likes that. We didn't like it when our parents did it. But I want you to come up with something. I want you to make a commitment tonight. You're a part of this for a reason, to come up with one thing you can do. Even that one thing might be just sharing this on your page, because it's your help that will, maybe lead us to the next person who says, oh, I have this, or I can do this. And that's how we solve this community, like Ramon said. So that's my message of hope. I wouldn't be here without my story. My son wouldn't be here without my story. And all the pain I experienced, it was worth every moment of trauma to be here with you, 2 Kaylas tonight, with all of you. So
there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a silent round of applause to Jennelle Gordon, Kayla Bright, Kayla Bettles, and Tina Sani. Please check out beyondfreedominternational.org and also on Instagram, Beyond Freedom OC. That is Beyond Freedom OC. At Prodigal Becoming, PRODIGAL BECOMING, and bettles.kayla, BETTLES.kayla, and of course Tina Sani, TINASONNIE. Ladies, it's been such an honor. I learned a lot too, and I definitely will. I applaud you for being here first and foremost. But everyone, please share this video. Please tell your friends about Beyond Freedom. Simple click, Beyond Freedom OC, follow and share them. It takes 2 seconds, right? And also, we'll do more of this in the future. Plenty more to come. Jennelle, thank you so much. Ladies, it's been such an honor. I thank you all for being here. We'll do this again.